Hello, my dear students, and welcome to my class, Biodiversity Conservation and Food Security. We are discussing about the biodiversity conservation, different laws we'll be discussing. So, when we are talking about the biodiversity, somewhere it is directly connected with the food security. So, in this lecture, we'll be talking about discussing about the what is the biodiversity, how important it is, and how food security is related with this. So, in this, we'll be discussing about the biodiversity and the food security, how it is connected with the food security. So, biodiversity is the variety of uh, biological materials, biological variety, and variability of the life on Earth. Biodiversity is a measure of variation at the genetic, species, and ecosystem level. The World Conservation Monitoring Center of the UNEP has identified a total 17 mega biodiversity countries, and India is one of the 17 mega biodiversity. We are very, very rich in the biodiversity and we contribute significantly in the world biodiversity. The main criteria for declaring any area as a biodiversity hotspot is the endemism, how endemic species the area is having. That is one of the important criteria for declaring any area as a biodiversity hotspot. So endemism at the level of species, genera, and family. So this is the map taken from the internet of that is the World Atlas. It is showing the green area is showing these are the areas which are having contributing the maximum biodiversity in the world biodiversity. So of this, if we see the International Union for Conservation Nature Data Bank, so of these 1,50,300 species assessed till now, these many species has been assessed. Assessed means what are their status, whether they are abundant, they are low, endangered or critically endangered. So there are different categories of the IUCN. Accordingly, we do the assessment to give the conservation priority. So if they are critically endangered, they need more conservation attention. If they are endangered, comparatively less. So these categories has been made so that the conservation effort can be made accordingly. So of these 1,50,300 species assessed by the IUCN Red List, yes, 42,100 species are threatened with extinction. That is 28% of all species evaluated. So 28% species are critically endangered, on the verge of extinction. They are threatened with extinction. So the reason for this is the loss of habitat, the spread of disease, pollution, and unsustainable fishing practices are directly related to the action of human, or recovery from these problems is related really straightforward. So till now we have among the threatened taxa, among the birds, we have 13% birds are threatened with extinction, mammals 27%, crustacean 28%, sharks and rat 31%, conifers 34%, coral reefs 36%, and amphibians 41%. So 41% amphibians are threatened with the extinction. So this is the status at the world level. So India is very, very rich in the world in the biodiversity, and we are among the 17 mega biodiversity countries, and accounting for 7 to 8% of the global biodiversity. India has only 2.4% of the world's land area, but it has 8.1% of the world species diversity. That is really remarkable. The land area is comparatively is just 2.4%, while we are contributing 8.1% of the world species diversity. This include nearly 49,000 species of plants and over 1 lakh species of animals. India is also represent 4 of 34 globally identified biodiversity hotspots. Those are the Himalayan, Indo-Burman region, the Western Ghats, and Sundaland. We have already discussed in our previous lecture. We know biodiversity has got two kind of value. One is the direct value, another is the indirect value. Direct value means directly we are being benefited by the biodiversity. That is the direct value. And indirect value means through indirect value means like social, and cultural values, ethical values, aesthetic values, and optional value. So among the direct, again, it has been further divided in the consumptive use value and productive use value. Consumptive use value means the biodiversity product we are consuming, like fuel wood, fodder, fruits from the forest, or the food grains from the. So that is the consumptive use value, means for the consumption. And another is the productive use value, that is the again direct value. Productive use value means making using the biodiversity to sell out for the commercial purpose and earning some money. That is called productive use values, like timber and all. So among the indirect values, there are, again, it has been divided into 4 different categories. We have already discussed all these. Social and cultural values, these are important for the biodiversity conservation. Ethical values, aesthetic values, and optional values. So what is the food security? We have so much of food, we have so much of the biodiversity. When we are talking about the biodiversity, we have so much of the animal and the plant products, and we are dependent on the animal and the plant products. We are dependent on the milk from the animals, we are depending on the vegetation and food grains from the plants. So animal and plants both are very, very important for our survival. So food and nutrition security is achieved if adequate food means quantity, quality, safety, socioculture, acceptability is available. If adequate food is available and associable for the satisfactory use and utilization by all individuals at all time to live a healthy and active life. This is the definition by the FAO, and the other definitions are the, like World Bank gave the definition, the food security as access by all people at all time to sufficient food for an active, healthy life. And the food security exists when all people at all time have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary need and food preference for a healthy and active life. So these are the different definition of the food security. What is the food security? So ultimately, the food security is to get the quality food in enough quantity, quantity to sustain ourselves. Okay, so these are the definition of the food security. So there are different policies. Government is doing lots of work on the food security. So there are different policies and legislative framework related to the biodiversity and the food security in India. Convention of Biological Diversity took place in 1992. The Convention of the Biological Diversity took place in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro during this Earth Summit for Conservation of Biodiversity. So every nation had to develop their own biodiversity act. So under that biodiversity, they were talking about the conservation of the biodiversity, sustainable utilization, and equitable and fair sharing of the resources. So on the basis of the convention, every nation had to make their own biodiversity act, and India made its biodiversity act in 2002. The convention took place in 1992, and India made its act in 2002. It was a long way, and we were doing a lot of work to finally finally decide or finally make the biodiversity act. So India, in India, the act was enacted in 2002 with the main objective is the conservation of the biological diversity and the sustainable use of its components. And the third and the very important is the fair and equitability sharing benefit arising out of the utilization of the genetic resources. So these were the 3 main objectives of the CBD Act, Biodiversity Act. And the Act prohibits the following activities without the prior approval from the National Biodiversity Authority. Any person or organization, either based or India or outside, obtain any biological resources occurring in India for its research or commercial utilization, the transfer of the result of any research related to any biological resources occurring in or obtained from India, the claim of any intellectual property right or any invention based on the research made on the biological resources obtaining from India. So there were some prohibits for the following activities. For these activities, you have to take permission before claiming for the intellectual property right. So there are the CBD Biodiversity Act, Conservation of Biodiversity Act, envisaged a three-tier committee, three-tier structure to regulate the access of biological resources. One was the National Biodiversity Authority at the state level. The head office is in the Chennai. Then second tier is the State Biodiversity Board. Every state in India should have one state biodiversity board. Then third is the third committee is the Biodiversity Management Committee, BMC, at local level. So one state can have more than one biodiversity management committee, because ultimately the biological products belongs to some local community. So that is why there should be more than one biodiversity management committee. The acts provide these authorities with special funds as a separate budget in order to carry out any research project dealing with the biological nature resources of the country. So this we just discussed about the Biodiversity Act 2002 and how convention took place, how people thought of conserving the biodiversity for the sustainable utilization and for the fair and equitable sharing of the resources. So that we discussed, and India made the Biodiversity Act 2002. Now we'll be discussing about the Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers' Right Act, that is PPVNFR Act 2001. Okay, so farmers are recognized as plant breeders and they can register their variety. Whatever they are growing, if I am growing a new crop, so I will be considered as a plant breeder, and whatever I have grown, whatever innovation I have done, whatever new crop I have grown, we can get it registered, its variety. Farmers engage in the conservation of genetic resources of land races and wild relative economic plants, and their improvement through selection and prevention and recognized and rewarded. And protecting the traditional practices of the farmer for saving seeds from one harvest and using the saved seeds either for sowing for their next harvest or sharing them with their farm neighbors. So whatever I am growing, I can register the variety. Second, we have to preserve, we have to save the seeds of the native plants, wild relative of the economic plants. We have to, whatever we are growing, we have to save those seeds for our next crop, or we can share. This is a very, very common practice in the villages. One grows, if there are many farmers and they all together are growing wheat, so next year they exchange their seeds. They try to, so that the monotony can be removed and there should not be the inbreeding and other this thing. The next is the National Food Security Act, NFSA 2013. So the National Food Security Act main objective was to provide food and nutritional security in the human life cycle approach by ensuring access to adequate quantity of quality food at affordable prices to people to live a life with dignity. So every nation of the country should get the nutritional security, should get enough food to sustain, and to access to adequate quantities of quality food at affordable price to prepare a life with dignity. So the main coverage under this scheme, main coverage under National Food Security Act 2013 is the 75% of the rural population and up to 50% of the urban population for receiving subsidized food grains under targeted public distribution system, that is called TPDS. Public distribution system is quite old to ensure the food security, to ensure the availability of the food and the availability of the food to every nation of the India. So overall, National Food Security Act creates a 67% of the total population, and eligibility is the priority household to be covered under TPDS, that is Targeted Public Distribution System. According to guideline by the state government, household covered under existing Antyodaya Ananya Yojana. So Antyodaya Ananya Yojana, started by Government of India in 2000, is the largest scheme. Main aim of this scheme is to ensure the food security and remove the hunger from India. So this is the main aim of the AAY to remove to ensure the food security and remove the hunger from India. And what are the provision under this National Food Security Act? The provision is that 5 kg of food grains per person per month at rupees 3 to 1 per kg for rice, wheat and coarse grain. The existing Antyodaya Ananya Yojana household will continue to receive 35 kg of food grains per household per month. Nutrition meal and maternity benefit of not less than rupees 6,000 to a pregnant woman and lactating mother during pregnancy and 6 months after the childbirth. So if woman is pregnant, the government hospital provide them 6,000 rupees to sustain and also take care of the child and the mother, lactating mother also. So there is a provision for the meal for every children up to 14 years of the age. Food security allowance to beneficiary in case of non-supply of entitled food, grain or maize. Setting up the grievances redressal mechanism at the district and state level. If somebody not getting their share, they have all right, and there are grievances redressal mechanism at the district level and state level. So they can go and lodge their complaint. So these are the provision under the Food Security Act 2013. Okay. So now come to what is the global trend in the agriculture and impact of biodiversity, impact on biodiversity. So global trend, agriculture began around 12,000 years ago, and approximately 7,000 plant species and several thousand animal species have been used historically for human nutrition and health requirement. Whatever requirement we are getting from either the plants, either the food grains or the animals in form of the fish, in form of the chicken, in form of the eggs, in form of the milk. And so since 1900 there has been a significant global trend towards diet. There is a significant global trend towards diet. Today, 12 plants, crops and 14 animal species today provide 98% of the world food needs, and wheat, rice and maize alone account for more than 50% of the globally energy intake. In every house, from north to south, from east to west, rice and chapati both are the staple diet. At some places it is chapati and some places it is rice. So these are the staple diet, wheats and rice and this thing. Today 12 plant crops and 14 animal species provides 98% of world's food needs, and with wheat, rice and maize alone account for more than 50% of the global energy intake. So effect of diet simplification, more than 800 million people are undernourished and 200 million children are underweight. In 2009, more than 1 billion people were classified as hungry, the highest number in history. Another 1 billion people suffer from micronutrient deficiencies, including vitamin A, zinc and iron. Greater incidence of type 2 diabetes among urban dwellers and vulnerability to catastrophic events, pests and diseases. So if we do not have good food, if we do not have the quality food, we are prone to the diseases. We are easily suffer from different kind of diseases. So what are the legacy of the green revolution? We know when green revolution was started. Green revolution was started to have more and more crops, more and more grain to ensure the food security. So, legacy of green revolution: disaggregation of agriculture and natural resources management, increase in food production because this green revolution was started to have more and more food, more and more grain to ensure the food security. So this increases in food production. So increases in food production have been achieved thoroughly high input intensity and industrial agriculture that is heavily dependent on the fossil fuels and agrochemical. And because of that, to have more and more grains, more and more food, what we did, we started using lots of fertilizers, pesticides, everything. We had enough food, we had enough food grains, but pollution was the major issue. Increase in CO2 emission, land conversion, loss of biodiversity, and uneven distribution of the food supply. These were the major issues of the legacy of the Green Revolution. There are challenges to achieve global food security. That is the population growth. We have to control the population because whatever more and more we are growing and population is increasing exponentially. We every time we have to make a new effort to have more and more crop. So population growth, this is one of the challenge to achieving global food security. Climate change, uncertain rains, weather conditions, these are again one of the hindrance in the food security. Food inequality, not equally distributed. Food is not equally distributed. So food inequality is also one of the challenge. Gender inequality and the continuous biodiversity loss. Continuous biodiversity loss because of various regions. We have lost many indigenous plant species, many indigenous food. The rice and the other used to be very some areas were used to have very good variety of the rice, but now we do not have, on the name of the green revolution or maybe because of the increasing population. So innovation for integrated biodiversity and food security. What are the innovation for integrated biodiversity and food security? So diversification of production system, tree crops, intercrops, and maintenance of ecosystem services, including carbon storage. Conservation, agriculture, fair and equitable access of market, especially for smallholder farmers. That is the very important. Fair and equitable access of market, especially for smallholder farmers, and payment of environmental services. These are the innovation for integrated biodiversity and food security. And the new approaches for integrated agriculture and biodiversity is the eco-farming, conservation agriculture, new green revolution, new agriculture, agro-agriculture approaches, integrated management of biodiversity for food and agriculture. So eco-farming is basically, that is the method that combines innovation, method and socio and science-backed research with respect for nature and biodiversity. It aims to minimize negative environment impact while promoting long-term sustainability and the well-being of the farmers, communities, and consumers. That is called eco-agriculture. Means agriculture without disturbing the ecology, without imbalancing the ecology. Conservation agriculture, name itself says conservation agriculture. Agriculture and conservation side by side. As defined by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, is a farming system that promotes maintenance of the permanent soil cover, minimum soil disturbance, and diversification of the plant species. That is the conservation agriculture. New Green Revolution. What is New Green Revolution? The New Green Revolution is a new generation of plant that can grow and yield grains for multiple seasons rather than dying after one season. So if we grow the crop, it should be we can harvest in multiple seasons rather than just one season. So they are more drought and stress resilience, more tolerant of pests, able to store more carbon and better able to access nutrient. Then agro-agriculture approaches are a branch of scientific inquiry that uses science, practice, and a social movement to address food and nutrition security. They are based on the idea that agri-food system are coupled with socio-ecological system. And next is the new agriculture. What is the new agriculture? The modern agriculture is an evolving approach to farming practices that help farmers increase efficiency and reduce the use of natural resources, some modern farming method. Um, so that's how these are the new approaches for the agriculture, to have more and more grain and less pollution and the pressure on the. So there is a very, very successful, these all can be achieved with the motivation of the local, with the involvement of the local. If we are not going to involve the local for any decision making, for any policy making, we are not going to be successful. For any more policy making, we have to involve the locals, and the locals can do the wonders. If they are motivated, if they decide something, they can bring back the lost heritage, the lost variety. And that is a very, very successful example is the Sarguja. This is a success story of Jeera rice, Jeera Phool rice. In 2005, a group of 20 tribal women from 6 villages in Sarguja district in India's central eastern state of Chhattisgarh realized the threat to the survival of the traditional rice variety called Jeera Phool and formed a self-help group to protect and promote it. So Jeera Phool rice is a very fine variety of the rice. It grows in Chhattisgarh areas, and it gives a very beautiful smell, and very less is available in the market. So because of the exploitation, because of different reasons, because of the fertilizers, the Jeera rice was almost gone. So the 20 tribal people from 6 villages decided to bring back the Jeera Phool rice. So Jeera Phool is an indigenous superfine aromatic variety of rice. The cumin-like grain in a very soft in the mouth and remain flat even after cooling. Its popularity gradually increases in local markets. The number of group members grew, and they eventually registered their variety with Plant Variety and Farmers' Right Authority to India. So they registered, they worked to bring back they worked to grow the Jeera Phool rice, and they registered the variety with Plant Variety and Farmers' Right Authority of India. The group then applied for geographical indicator tags. So whatever we are growing, we have to, if we are selling something or we are growing something, if it is we are registering something, we have to give a geo tag, from which area this has been grown, from which area this has been obtained. So the group then applied for a geographical indicator tag, means the location where it is being grown. The Jeera Phool variety is primarily grown only in Sarguja district, which was approved in March 2019 for a period of 10 years. If you are going to apply for the this rights geotagging, that will be there for 10 years. You will be getting this right for the 10 years. So with this successful story, I end up with my talk, and thank you very much for patience listening. But before we end up the class, I would like to convey a message that food is still not enough available. There are many people who hardly get one-time food. So we have to respect the food security. We have to respect the food, and we should conserve. We should not waste the food. In many marriages, in many occasions, we have seen the food has been leftover food has been thrown in the. So that is, we have to take care, and we should not encourage people to waste the food, to conserve, protect, and equally distribute the food. Thank you very much. With this, I end up my lecture.